So, hello and welcome all. As always, we'll begin our today's session by a recap of week two. I see we have 14 players who have joined almost. Here it is. I'm going to start the quiz. We have 10 questions today. Let's see how we get on to start. And as always, the question will be shared on the screen, and you will have to answer it on your own device that you are using. So, here we start. So, to recap, which of the following services will automatically scale with an expected increase in web traffic? This time I've given 60 seconds for every question. Great. Seems everyone got the right answer. Moving on to the next question. Which is the recommended pattern for designing a highly available architect on AWS? And the options are: ensure that components have low latency network connectivity, run enough Amazon EC2 instances to operate at peak load, ensure application is designed to accommodate failure of any component, use a monolithic application that handles all operations. Okay. So yes, the right answer is ensure application is designed to accommodate failure of any component. That's how high available architecture would be, that if there is no single point of failure, if the component is designed in a way that in case of this specific failure, then it can be accommodated in some other way, then your application will be truly highly available. Moving on to the next question. Where are the AWS compliance documents such as SOC 1 reports located? Amazon Inspector, AWS CloudTrail, AWS Artifact, AWS IAM. So good enough. Yes, AWS Artifact is the right answer. This is the place where you'll be able to find all the compliance documents. AWS IAM is mainly for accessing the AWS resources. CloudTrail is auditing service, and Amazon Inspector. We will come to it later on in the course. Let's move on to the next question. What is the lowest cost durable storage option for retaining database backups for immediate retrieval? Amazon S3, Amazon Glacier, Amazon EBS, Amazon EC2 Instance Store. Amazon S3 is the right answer. So Amazon Glacier is not the right answer because it will not be available for immediate retrieval. Glacier is mainly for archival, and it takes time to retrieve the data from the archive. Amazon EBS would not be a low cost, and EC2 instance store, again, it's not a durable storage. EC2 instance storage, they're going to lose as soon as EC2 is rebooted or shut down. So Amazon S3 is the right answer. Moving on to the next question. How many availability zones should compute resources be provisioned across to achieve high availability? Okay, yes, the answer is at least two. The resources are deployed in availability zones and not region. So the last option is not correct. The specific region has multiple availability zones, and we do choose the specific availability zone, though it is a logical a name in which availability zone the resources are provisioned. And to make your application highly available, we do provision resources in multiple availability zones so that if availability zone goes down, your application is still available. So to make it highly available, it is at least two. To the next question. Yes, I see it's every time the scoreboard going change, which is good. And Turgut is the highest climber, wait up to 4 places. That's great. Sixth question. For which auditing process does AWS have sole responsibility? So this question is related to AWS share responsibility. So which of this is going to be done purely by AWS? So last week it seemed that 30 seconds is a bit less for everyone. Today it seems like it's about right. 1 minute is too much, so probably we'll keep it at around 45 seconds for next week. We'll see how it goes. And yeah, most of you guys got correct. It is the physical security, which will be the sole auditing process that AWS has to do. The customers will not be having access to the data centers or the physical security of the data center. AWS IAM policy, it will be customer's responsibility to ensure that the IAM policies are set correctly. So are Amazon S3 bucket policies and the CloudTrail logs. So CloudTrail is mainly for the auditing purposes, and all the logs are stored in a specific S3 bucket that is configured by the customer. So it will be the customer's responsibility. Moving on to the next. Good. There are more changes on the scoreboard. Cool. Next question. Which storage service can be used as a low-cost option for hosting static websites? And the options are Amazon Glacier, Amazon DynamoDB, Amazon Elastic File System, and Amazon Simple Storage Service. Yeah, most of you got it right again. It's Amazon Simple Storage Surface. As long as it is a low cost, it's going to be Amazon S3 hosting static websites, and the websites needs to be for immediate travel, or it should be accessible immediately. So it is S3. You will not be able to host a website on a Glacier because it is mainly for archive. And if it is put in an archive, your users will not be able to access the website in real time. DynamoDB is a NoSQL offering from Amazon, and you'll not be able to host the entire website on a NoSQL database. Though you might want to have, if it's a dynamic website, you might to have the data of the dynamic website stored in Amazon DB, but not the entire static website. And so would be Amazon EFS. So moving on to the next question. And Power Gazelle has a streak of 600 answers in a row. That is great. So I think now we'll move on to the eighth question. Which Amazon EC2 instance pricing model can provide discounts up to 90%? So 90% is the key here. And the options are reserved instances, on demand, dedicated hosts, and spot instances. Yes, spot instances is the right answer, which gives up to 90% savings or discounts. Reserved instances gives up to 75%. Dedicated hosts are more costlier. The dedicated host would mean that you have a specific server for your specific organization, and that will be much more costlier. And on demand is like a pay as you go pricing model, and spot instances give 90% discount on the on demand prices. Moving on to the next one. That's great. This is season climbing to the top. And Prasad is back with a streak of three answers correct in a row. Great. Last two questions. Which of the following is not true for a security group? I'll let you guys read the answers here and answer carefully. Okay. This question seems like taking time for everyone. Fifteen seconds to go. Good. Only one of you guys got it right. Supports uh, allow and deny rules, and that is not supported by security group. So understand here, and I think I'll take more time here to explain the concept or the differences between a security group and a NACL, which is network ACLs. Security group operates at an instance level, and NACL operates at a subnet level. Security group only allows the allow rules. It only allows the rules. NACL is where you can both allow and deny rules. Your security group is stateful. That means when you open for an inbound traffic, it's automatically going to open for the outbound traffic. It is not with the case for NACL. And the security group is going to evaluate all the like rules before allowing or not allowing the traffic at the instance level. Whereas for NACL, it is the ordering based on the rule number. So every rule has a number, let's say 100, 101, 100, 200, 3. So it's going to start from the top. Uh, it will evaluate the rule number 100, and based on that, whether it is allow or deny, it is going to execute implement the rule, and that's it. It's not going to evaluate the other rules which are below in the sequence. So difference between security group and NACL are really important. In my last lecture, I did share a table. You will be able to find that in the video. This is where I would, and this might not be very important for at least cloud practitioner. You might be having at least one or two questions, but for a solution architect associate, this is the most important thing. How to create a VPC, differences between security group and ACL, anything that is related to the networking component, the VPC will be very important for solution architect associate exam. And I cannot stress enough to understand these and implement these on your own ones to get it, like absolute clarity in your mind. Moving on to the next and the last question. Which features is used to monitor the security for your VPC? Again, a question for VPC. The key here is monitor the security. So last few people who are still thinking, think about monitoring about the security. Okay, so 5 of you guys got it right, which is flow logs. So let's understand the concepts again for a VPC. So we have security groups, which is mainly to secure you at an instance level. Network ACLs are mainly to secure at a subnet level. VPC peering would be mainly if there are two different VPCs and the resources of these VPCs wants to uh, uh, communicate with each other, access each other resources. That's when you'll be setting up a VPC peering between two VPCs. We do have route tables, which is mainly for routing the packets and giving the rules of where exactly they should be routed to. We have internet gateway, which is mainly to ensure that your VPC accesses the resources of the VPC access the internet based on the public subnet, and you'll have to configure your route table for a specific subnet so that the data is routed via internet gateway. The flow logs is mainly to capture the logs, and that is where the monitor the security would come into picture and not secure your VPC. If for monitoring your VPC, it is the flow logs because it is going to capture the IP address of all the traffics and coming in and the going out. So for this specific question, flow logs is the right answer. And with that, we finish the quiz and let's have a look at the scoreboard. So Professor A got 7 out of 10 right, which is great. Siskin got 8 of 10 right. Gazelle got 7 of the 10 right. And then we have runners-up Sushil and Pankaj. Great. But yeah, I know this one was probably a bit more tough than the earlier quiz, obviously because the course is also becoming big, and we had concepts of EC2, S3, and VPC here. These are the kind of questions probably that you will be able to expect in your cloud practitioner. But again, this would be only around I don't say 30 to 50% because initial 20 25% would be on the cloud concepts, and then we have 15 16% on the pricing, which we'll be covering today.